So, Michael, obviously we have just done Captain America: The First Avenger, and now we're going to do Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So I thought there's no better time than to talk about Chris Evans and his launching of a political website. I don't know if you've heard about this.
I had not heard about this, Luke. Please fill me in.
Chris Evans is going to use his superhero skills to protect the country from something more evil, the political divide. The actor is launching a website called A Starting Point, which focuses on featuring political discourse from both sides of the aisle. God,
it's so funny that this guy is famous for fighting Nazis, and he's literally employing like the tactic of people who are very. So basically, that's it. So in the next film, we better see him invite Hydra in and be like, hey Hydra, let's hear your point of view. Let's have a rational debate, Hydra.
I think that's the worst 5 words in the English language. Both sides of the aisle. With the ultimate goal of helping to create informed, responsible, and empathetic citizens. In a launch video for the site, Evans said, "Why isn't there a place I can go to hear both sides of an issue in a succinct way that I can trust? I mean, one side wants to kill all the immigrants and one side doesn't. I mean, can't I just go to a place where, it's..."
Can't we just have a debate about the Jewish question?
Yeah, exactly. Like, torturing children, like, the left keeps trying to shut down this argument, and it's only making people support it more.
Yeah. Goodness me.
So the purpose of the site is an education bipartisan tool. So there you go. Fucking hell, that's what he's doing. So,
yeah,
I'd say best of luck, but I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah, actually, just on a side note of people being terrible, I found out the other day that Kelsey Grammer is a Trump supporter.
Yeah, I knew that for a while, which really kind of ruined Fraser for me.
Oh dear. Anyway, so I like the bit where someone calls in to his psychology show and he says, "Have you tried not being a cuckservative?"
Back up, chump, Biggie Smalls rips it quick and kicks it quick. You know how black niggas get with the hoods, fatigues, with the boots, with trees. Flipping trees, making crazy G's. Hitting buckshots at niggas that open spots on the avenue. Take my loot and I'm bagging. Pimping hoes that drive Volvos and rodeos. Flash the roll, make a wet in they pantyhose. Damn, a nigga style is unorthodox, grip the clock. When I walk down the crowded block, just in case a nigga wanna act out, I just black out, blow the motherfucking back out. That's a real nigga for you.
Anyway, so I think we should kind of move on with a bit of pace. We want to make this a reasonable speed. So we'll talk about Captain America, the Winter Soldier, of course, looking at this for the exact same reasons we were looking at the previous film. And by the way, we've already looked at, I should mention this, Luke, we've already looked at Captain America Civil War. So obviously that's the third one. But Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Captain America, the Winter Soldier? Is it called The Winter Soldier or just Winter Soldier?
Yeah, The Winter Soldier, yes.
Okay.
So
Good.
Captain America, The Winter Soldier is a 2014 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Captain America. It is the sequel to 2011's Captain America: The First Avenger, and it is the 9th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The film was directed by Anthony and Joe Russo, also produced by Kevin Feige, stars Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, Kobe Smulders, Frank Grillo, Emily Van Camp, Haley Atwell, Robert Redford, and Samuel L. Jackson. It's released on April the 4th, 2014. And Michael, have a guess at the budget.
I'm just going to guess like slightly higher. That just seems logical. So I think last time I guessed 125. You said it was 140. So I'm going to go for 150 million.
177.
Okay, well at least I was on the right track.
Yeah, and the box office.
A lot. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think I'll just do for exactly what I said last time. Last time I said 700 million, and you were like, "That's wrong." So this time I'll say 700 million again. It'll probably be too low.
Are you going to say 700 million? Is that your answer?
Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? Seeing as I think it'll be too low, I'll go for 750 million.
714 million.
Okay, so I did end up slightly further off, but yeah.
It's just perfect, isn't it? Like we said before, obviously, for the first Avenger, it was like before the Marvel Cinematic Universe really got going. This, I think, is when it got going. Like around this time in 2014, you're coming off the Avengers, you're looking forward to Avengers Age of Ultron. Like this is when the Marvel Cinematic Universe was at a level which I think it has continuously been ever since this time period.
Yeah, I think this was peak. I mean, I remember a peak in like a good way. Do you remember when peak used to mean like a bad thing? People were like, oh, that's peak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if people, are the kids still doing that? We'll have to find a child sometimes.
I think this was a heyday for like nerd culture on the internet.
Yes.
Because I think it's shit now. But I don't know. Back in the day, there was a sort of nice innocence about it. I don't know. Maybe it's just nostalgia.
Yeah. See, I didn't really care about this film, and I remember just not really being sure, like thinking to myself, okay, so is Captain America the Winter Soldier? I didn't even know anything about it, and it took a while for me to actually get around to seeing this film. I ended up seeing it on a terrestrial TV, let's say 2016 probably. Anyway, and of course I rewatched it twice in anticipation for this film. But the important question is, Luke, did you like Captain America: The Winter Soldier?
Oh, here's the thing, Michael. This movie has often been called the best standalone movie in the MCU. So that was the case before Black Panther came along, certainly. But I can't say I did like it. I think my feelings probably around the same as the first Avenger.
I would say that I was going to start with the exact same thing you were going to start with. That's why I was going to start off by saying, this is called the best standalone film. I also can say that I wasn't mad about it. I mean, I think, I can tell you that I consider it slightly better than the first Avenger, but still really not fantastic, no, by any means. And of course, so yeah, it's interesting that we agree on that. I think maybe, I don't know, I might actually be slightly more on it than you, but I don't know. We'll see. So nitpicks. How many nitpicks do you have?
I just got one.
I've got 4.
Wow.
Okay. So you first.
Yeah, I'll go first. So, okay, I've got 2. I'll still go first, but yeah, I got 2. So the first thing is like when Captain America's giving that speech at the end of the movie to all the employees in S.H.I.E.L.D. saying what's happened with Hydra. Like, I don't know, like, surely there must be something you can do to just cut out the communications when he says, hey, this is Steve Rogers. Maybe, like, I don't know, just press a button, flick a switch, shut down the communications in the building. Surely they must be able to do that. Like,
yeah, that's true. They should be able to.
Robert Redford should be right on that.
Yeah, it's like you get that classic scene in a film where like somebody goes off script on the TV or something, and the TV executives are there and they're like, should I shut him down? And it's like, no. I remember, so I was just remembering the line in The Simpsons where it's like, should I shut her down? And the guy's like, no, let her talk. I'm trying to get fired.
That's great.
Anyway, so
next
did you have? I thought you said you had 1.
Yeah, but then I said I had 2.
Oh, sorry, I was zoned out.
Yeah, you should be sorry.
I was busy thinking about that. Don't worry, be happy song.
So next up, why not act? So Robert Redford, right? He does that phone killing device thing where all these security council members have got something stapled to their blazers and it kills them. Like, why doesn't he do that earlier? Why doesn't he do that when Scarlet Witch is fucking kicking everybody, and destroying everybody? Like, why doesn't he do that then? Because she's still got that thing on her.
You mean Black Widow?
What did I say?
You said Scarlet Witch. Oh, and I was so confused. I was like, is Scarlet Witch in this film?
No, it's because what's the actress's name?
Scarlett Johansson.
That makes sense. There you go. You can see how I got confused.
Yes, I can actually see that. Yeah, I didn't even
occur to me. Scarlet Witch. That would have been great.
ScarJo. Anyway, so actually, that's a good point. I was actually thinking to myself, I don't think I wrote this down, but I was thinking it. You know how she pulled off the thing and she got electrocuted. Mm-hmm. I was thinking maybe she could have anticipated that would happen and she could have saved herself some aggro if she would have just used any kind of object. Like maybe she had a little plastic credit card in her thing and she knocked off the plastic credit card. I mean, it's got to be something just grabbing it, you idiot. I mean, to be honest, I have to say that it was kind of poor design on his part that he made it give you an electric shock, but clearly not sufficient of an electric shock to actually... She didn't even need to be resuscitated. She just kind of woke up. Not very good. Anyway, so my nitpicks. Number 1, he doesn't kill French Pirate Man, or doesn't really look at him. He kind of just falls to the ground, and Captain America is content that he's dead. And then the weird thing is that, of course, French Pirate Man then throws a grenade at them, and Scarlett Johansson Black Widow says, that one's on me. And I find myself thinking, but was it really on you? Because it was Captain America who just left him lying on the floor.
She's internalized sexism there, man.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Now, this other one, okay, if Dr. Zola had stalled a tiny bit longer...
Franco Zola.
Franco Zola, yeah.
No, do you know who that is?
Oh, he's a football player, isn't he?
Yeah, he played for Chelsea.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Continue.
I can't really remember anything about him. I've got who's that guy? I've got a different guy in my head. Zuba? I don't know.
Zinedine Zidane? I don't know.
No, I don't know. Anyway, so what am I saying? Oh yeah, I know. So basically, the actual Zola, Dr. Zola, if he would have stalled a bit longer, Captain America would have died. Because basically, he's like blah 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 blah, German, and he says, but you will be too dead to hear this. You see, I have been stalling, Captain America, and he gives him like just long enough to lift up this grate and escape. And you just think if he would have just kept talking just naturally, like, I've been noticing that you're not at risk of dying, so I will keep talking to you since you will be able to hear the end of my sentence, Captain America.
That whole scene
and he'd be sat there, you know. And then this is the big one. This is one I think about. How can they not just shoot his legs? Because, okay, here's my problem with Captain America, right? Like, or the shield in general, okay? So the shield, it works in a way because it's like, okay, so he can block like the odd stray bullet. You know, if he's in the middle of a fight, there's a lot of heat going on. At the end of the day, you're naturally going to aim for, you know, the midsection, either the head or, you know, the chest or something like that. And obviously the shield will help you there. But if you're like, there's scenes in this film where they're shooting at him. He's stood pretty much still as they're shooting at him. And I'm thinking to myself, at that point, you know, you have enough time to think, clearly this isn't working. Just aim a tiny bit lower. You know, like, because that's the thing, like the shield, I mean, it's fine. Like, it's a good thing to have, and he's better off having it than not. But at the end of the day, it's good for deflecting in the middle of a battle where people are firing everywhere, a couple of things going on. If it's just you and somebody shooting right at you, then the shield doesn't have enough diameter to protect you completely, and therefore, you know, and the stupid thing is, like, they could have written it to be, you know, more interesting in that he would have to stay mobile, and he'd have to keep moving around and making sure that people couldn't get a clear shot on him. So obviously they couldn't just aim for his legs, but there are scenes where he's literally just stood still, people are shooting right at him, and he, you know, just whatever. Anyway, and then the final one is the fact that they just like are perfectly okay to have these ships just shoot into each other, thus causing them to fall to the ground. And I'm thinking, are they that confident that the ships aren't going to fall in a slightly skewed angle and potentially crush millions of people?
That could have happened.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it didn't happen, and maybe we can say, well, they did know that wasn't going to happen. But I just think to myself, I mean, you know, the ships were running, so what if kind of they accidentally blew up one engine or something, and it ended up kind of spinning out of control? But yeah, whatever. And yeah, those are the nitpicks. So move on to the plot. And actually, you haven't explained the plot, have you? So explain the plot.
So I'll explain the plot. Where are we? I'm looking.
We are in England.
Yeah, that's really funny, Michael. Where is it?
Captain America is a
Captain
here we America.
Go. Yeah, so, okay. In Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Captain America, Black Widow, and Falcon join forces to uncover a conspiracy within S.H.I.E.L.D. while facing a mysterious assassin known as the Winter Soldier.
What does S.H.I.E.L.D. stand for?
I know.
Strategic Homeland Intelligence.
No, I don't think it's intelligence.
Investigation.
Interior? I think it's interior.
Interior experiments of leveling domestics.
Logistics. The L is logistics. I remember that because I was thinking, like, what the fuck? Logistics? What? Okay, I'm just going to look. So, S.H.I.E.L.D.
Avengers.
is a fictional espionage. Yeah. What does it stand for, though? Strategic Hazard Intervention Espionage.
I like how you pronounce Hazard like the football player.
I'm so used to it. I know. Oh, so no, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it was changed to the Strategic Homeland Intervention. See, it was Intervention, Enforcement, and Logistics Division. So I was right on all of them, which I thought I knew. Well, so credit to me.
I didn't think I would be right on any of them. So, well, I did know Strategic Homeland actually, and that's why I was very confused when you read out the wrong version. Anyway, so let's talk plot. And I guess, you know what? Okay. So I was going to say, I guess I'll do the same thing and start with what I liked. And I was about to say I don't have anything written down for things I liked. I actually have one thing written down for a thing I like regarding the plot. Mm-hmm. And apart from that, it's all kind of negative. So I don't know. Maybe you can jump into any positives you have to say. But I like the idea that they like use the. I mean, this kind of relates to the theme, but, you know, this film is a very themey film. So the idea that they can use your info, like your online data fingerprint, to predict, you know, or determine what kind of person you'll be, and like whether or not you're more or less likely to support Hydra, and kill you based on that. I thought it was like an interesting idea to say, like, you know, the idea that the villain's like, hey, you know, we can predict. And I guess the one thing I'll say is, so obviously, even this compliment comes with I don't know, what's the opposite to a silver lining? A shit smear, which is that it would have, I think, worked better maybe if you had like a I mean, we'll get into this, but if you had a villain with a slightly more relatable motivation who was saying something like, we need to kill people who the data predicts will be more likely to commit crime. So it's like, maybe the villain's like, using the elaborate data analysis, we have this massive fingerprint of every single person's data, everything they've done online, everything they've purchased. And from that, we can predict, what kind of people are more likely to commit crime, or what kind of people are more likely to do blah, blah, blah. And he says, so I'm going to send this thing up into space. It's just going to kill every single person. I mean, it's a bit Thanos-y, but, kill every single person who has this. And obviously, in reality, it's just, we're going to kill everyone who doesn't let me control the world because I want to control the world. Obviously, we'll get into that. And that's going to come under villain. But yeah, so my positive thing is I did like that idea of, because obviously that's the thing everyone talks about now, especially old people. Old people are like terrified of the internet. So like every single time I see my granddad, he's like, did you hear about how Facebook, I don't know why he talks like that. Did you hear about how Facebook just goes onto your, just knows everything that you've done? And it's like, if you're getting married, it will know it and it will send you all of these advertisements for marriage stuff because it knows these things. It's targeted advertisement. It's taking over. It's controlling your brain. That's why I don't believe in the internet. That's basically everything. Every single time I see my granddad, that's all he says. And he's like, what are you putting online? How do you know that the government doesn't know everything you're doing and all of your secrets?
Yeah. So what's the whole point you were making?
So the point I'm making is that idea of like, having a data footprint and that being incorporated into the villain's plan, I think works quite well as
relatable.
A narrative element.
Yeah.
It's topical, I think might be a good word.
Topical, yeah.
But that is my main positive. So if you want to jump in with any positives you have on their own, then that would be good.
Positives. Okay, so I guess I'll say what could have been a positive. Like, and this is the best I can do, and I think it'll kick us off well with the actual talk about what we don't like about the plot. So obviously, the first conversation that Captain America, I should say, has with Samuel L. Jackson at the beginning of the movie when he shows him these 3 helicarriers and like what S.H.I.E.L.D. is doing and saying, we can kill a terrorist as soon as he steps out of his spider hole or something like that. Captain America doesn't like it.
Spider hole.
And I thought initially it was like, oh, this is interesting. He's struggling with being a soldier in the modern world. Like, the world isn't as simple as it was back in the 1940s. When he was a soldier back then, he was like, yeah, I'll kill the Nazis. The Nazis are the bad guys. There is no doubt about that. And then it was like, maybe it's going to be interesting to see, the philosophical
Velociraptors.
Yeah, debate that he is perhaps going to have, or is going to play out throughout the rest of the movie, whether the surveillance is good, whether the surveillance is bad, But then it turns out that the surveillance stuff is being used by the Nazi death cult Hydra, and that makes it really easy for Steve Rogers to be like, yeah, let's stop it all. Because that's the thing, like, it's an interesting conundrum for him. It's an interesting question, but that conundrum is solved right away by the fact that, the bad guys have got their hands on this stuff, so he needs to blow it up and destroy it all. So the thing is, he could have had another interesting story, but yeah, it becomes really simple for him, and that's my thoughts.
Yeah, so I wanted to say, I didn't actually write this down, but it was a similar thing, and I feel like they could have made it so his big challenge was finding out that, there are problems with America, that, or that, for example, because literally going back to what you just said, that how in World War II it's very simple, but the reality is, I don't know, obviously it's very easy to imagine why you wouldn't have a modern blockbuster making these points, but, America has illegally invaded countries and overthrown dictators and things like that. And while I don't think you can necessarily say that directly,
not overthrown dictators, Michael.
Installed dictators and overthrown democratically elected leaders. And obviously, you course, hint at that idea of course, the idea that actually, the good guys, or maybe there aren't necessarily good guys. Maybe that whole paradigm doesn't really apply as easily to the modern world. And
are we the baddies?
Yeah, and you could relate that. You could relate that back to, of course, the previous film's massive focus on his career in propaganda. See, then
I didn't think of that. There you go. It's like a circle. It rhymes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's basically it. Yeah. Like you say, the massive problem is that these. And I guess we'll talk about the villain a bit later because I've got a few more things to say about the plot. But yeah, the main problem is that obviously you can have this situation where it's about challenging the idea that, what's good and what's bad is blurred. And of course that's set up because Nick Fury, he's totally gun-ho about this
he
magic killing thing. Yeah, exactly. But then at the end of the day, there's not really a challenge about Nick Fury's attitude towards it because ultimately it's like, oh, well, it's run by Nazis. Well, in that case, no problem.
Yeah, like I said, it becomes easy for him.
Yeah.
It's like he doesn't have to think about it anymore, and the audience doesn't have to think about it. It's like, yeah, all these fucking helicarriers, they need to be destroyed, and the whole SHIELD program needs to be destroyed because fucking Nazis are running it. So yeah, again, like they could have done something interesting, and you're right, Phil. Maybe because it's a mass movie, they have to make the baddies very bad, and as we all know, Marvel aren't particularly keen. I think Black Panther's the only movie that has been political, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, they weren't going to do something interesting here again, which is very unfortunate.
Yes. And on that note, I want to talk about, so like you say, the problem is, okay, Captain America, he is a boring character, basically because his whole character is, first of all, he doesn't really have a life. Like you never see, he's not like, for example, Peter Parker, who is, basically lives a regular teenager's life. And that's interesting. So even whatever you think about Peter Parker, he's got an interesting life as a teenager. He's not like Batman, where it's obviously he's got this internal conflict. He's very dark and brooding. Basically, Captain America is just can be summarized as perfect. He's basically just like, I'm great. I'll save the day. I'll fight for my country. Truth, justice, and apple pie, or whatever else. And the thing is, that intrinsically is very boring. Now, the problem is you could make that interesting by challenging the ideals of, what he's fighting for being a good thing, and putting him in a more complicated situation. And it comes back to the main point, which is, so Captain America it represents certain ideas, and you could have a really good film about him challenging those ideas and realizing that maybe, you can't just say that he fights for the good guys or he doesn't like bullies, and those kind of silly platitudes. And it could relate back to how much focus the previous film put on his role in propaganda, Luke. But, ultimately, when it comes down to it, if you don't have that, then on top of that, he's a really boring character. I mean, there's nothing interesting about it. I guess like the best thing I can say is that it was kind of nice to see him have that relationship with the what's his name? Falcon in the future, I guess is his name. What's his real name? Do you remember Falcon's real name? Sam? I think it's Sam.
Yes, Sam Wilson, I think.
Yes. And also, I guess, I will add a positive. I could have added this, but I didn't. Like all of the stuff about the things that he's missed from the future. Obviously, because I was saying before how in the previous film, I liked the idea of somebody from the 40s coming into the future and the way they would experience that. So I kind of like that little thing.
Oh, yeah.
To be honest, actually, that's another thing you could do that would make this film better. You could have part of the plot be, you get humor out of it, scenes of him actually struggling with things. I don't know, maybe he's, his mind is blown by Netflix or something, just a moment where he's kind of weirded out by the fact that it's, the future, but that never really happens. So,
yeah. No, I think what you were talking about there before, I just thought something in my head, they could have had a scene where he's thinking to himself and having maybe another existential crisis.
Yeah, you do like those.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the only way to make him interesting. When he's I'm Captain America, I'm meant to be all what's good about America, but what if America itself isn't good? He's his very name itself. Maybe he wants to reject that name. Again, Marvel isn't going to do that, but yeah.
Yeah, basically. And apart from that, okay, so I wanted to talk about this kind of relates back to what I just said about how Captain America, the conflict, the essential conflict of this film is not that interesting. And then the other problem is, and like I said, it's not like Peter Parker where you have all this interesting stuff. I just wanted to say, for some reason, a lot of the stuff that wasn't action felt very wooden. And for some reason, I really couldn't get behind Black Widow in this film. I don't know, for some reason, I guess it was the comedy in this film really didn't work for me. And the fact that, it was just every single time that Black Widow made a quip and just hey, what if you dated this girl from accounting? What if you dated the receptionist? I was
no, I didn't really like that either.
Yeah, and it was actually, and also it should be noted, it was equally annoying every single time that happened during the action scene. I don't know, I was I don't know. I mean, sometimes it works, with thing, but it didn't work here at all.
You got to keep it light. This is what Marvel movies do. Serious action scene. Oh, let's have a nice quip in there. Oh, you should date that nurse. Oh, she's actually a colleague. Can't do that. I don't know. Some shitty dialogue like that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I basically just want to say, as we'll get into, I think, possibly when we talk about action, which I think we are to talk about, a lot of this film is, in fact, I think we should mention out, a lot of this film is action. A ridiculous amount of this film is action. And if here's the thing, Luke, and it's got to be said, action, we'll talk about this a bit later, but action in a superhero film isn't intrinsically interesting. because
No.
superheroes are invulnerable. Even if, not physically, narratively, they're invulnerable. So unless there's like relationships you care about, or some way that this conflict is impacting the character's main life, or some way in which that conflict is playing out, internal conflict within the character or something like that, unless one of those things is happening, you're just left with like a bunch of people. You're left with, Man of Steel. Basically. I mean, this isn't as bad as Man of Steel, but you're left with that same idea of just meaningless action. So that's not a problem. I have one more thing to say about plot, but if you want to kind of take the floor for a bit.
Well, no, I'm just going to say like about the plot in general, but you go on. What was the one thing you were going to say?
Okay, so I just want to say this. Nick Fury is alive. Now, the problem I just said about action films is that these superheroes are invulnerable. And the thing is, you need to believe in a way that these superheroes do have like a sense in which they can die. And one of the most reliable ways to do that would be to actually kill some people. That would be a pretty good way to go. One of the things I would say you definitely don't want to do is have too many fake outs in your films, because already you're kind of you're already in a bit of a rubbish situation, because we all know that these characters are not at any real risk of dying. And then on top of that, if you have like a scene where a character actually does seemingly die, and then oh wait, they're still alive, and obviously in this film you have like a double whammy, because you get the reveal that the death from the last film was a fake out, because Bucky Barnes survived.
Yeah.
So it's already a fake out. And then on top of that, you get this Nick Fury death. And like, my opinion on it was honestly like, I kind of think that Nick Fury should have just died. Because, obviously, he's really important, things like that. But I think, it would have made the film feel like so much more impactful. There'd still be a lot of problems with this film, but at least it would have like kind of added or taken away that sense of like, everybody's invulnerable in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But instead, they kind of go the opposite way, which is now, even if I see somebody die in the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward, so far I've seen 2 people die. If you just take this film alone, I've seen 2 resurrections of people who were previously thought to be dead, and it's kind of like contributes to a general problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe of, death not really feeling like a real possibility.
Yeah, this is the movie, I think, which, because obviously that's a cliche in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a common complaint that people just come back from the dead, and this movie is the movie which is the most guilty of it. This is the thing, like, I was thinking, like, how am I going to discuss this plot? Because basically it's just like a spy thriller, just with superheroes. I was like, well, there's just so many twists and turns in this movie. Like, that's, I think, the theme of the plot. Not obviously surveillance, that's the actual theme, but just the general sense of the plot. It's like, you got, obviously, right from the start, Nick Fury dies. Nick Fury also hijacked that ship that he paid the guys to hijack that ship that Steve Rogers and Scarlet, I hadn't even said Scarlet Witch, Black Widow were at in the beginning. You get the whole twist with Dr. Zola, he's alive, and Hydra has been within
still
S.H.I.E.L.D.
a thing.
Yeah, it's still a thing, and is within S.H.I.E.L.D. That's another big twist.
Yeah.
Robert Redford, he's a bad guy. That's another twist.
Yeah, it was so hard to see coming.
Yeah.
He didn't seem to be evil at all.
No, I know. Then remember that guy? He's called Littman. He's one of the guys that gets
he was.
captured.
Luke, you wouldn't believe what I thought about him.
What?
I thought he was lit, man.
Wow. I didn't see that coming. That is my bad.
So can I just clarify? Wait, I said I knew who Litman was. Is he the one who is bold and some kind of racially ambiguous?
Yes.
Looks a bit like Cory Booker.
Yes, Cory Booker of S.H.I.E.L.D. He dies. Captain America and fights with the Winter Soldier, and the Winter Soldier turns out to be Bucky. That's another big twist. And then they get captured, but then Kobe Smulders comes in to save them all. That's another twist. And Nick Fury, he's alive. Wow, that's another twist. And then just all these twists and turns.
Did it subvert your expectations?
It's fucking Ryan Johnson would love this film. It's the best film ever. But it's just like so much like it's like there's nothing to hang on to. It's like the movie keeps on going different directions and it's intercut with action scenes, and then it just finishes. And it's like, okay, well, I guess that happened then. Like, there's nothing interesting about this movie. Well, there's nothing interesting about it to me anyway. Like, I was pretty much bored throughout all of it. I wasn't really interested in the plot or anything, because it's like basically they know Hydra is within S.H.I.E.L.D. pretty early on, so they got to figure out how to stop it, and then they just go through a series of events trying to stop it, and they eventually do stop it. So yeah, I mean, it's just not that interesting a movie. And as obviously we had a discussion before about how it could have been interesting if they focused on Captain America struggling with being a soldier in modern times. But yeah, it's just like, again, could have been good. There was something there, but they just completely went in the wrong direction. Yeah, I don't know, why is this so popular? Like, why has this got so many rave reviews? I just like, it's okay. There's nothing incredible. It's just like a standard Marvel movie. Maybe it's because of the action scenes and because it was more grounded, I guess. You could argue it's not grounded, but it's like, oh, it's a spy thriller. It's like, oh, you could watch this movie. I think that's the thing with superhero movies. Often it's like they get they're graded on a curve. It's like, oh, this is like a spy thriller just with superheroes. That means it's better than the average superhero movie. It's like, well, is the average spy thriller like a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10? No, it's not. It's 6 out of 10. So it's just the same, just with superheroes. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Basically, I mean, I think you said everything, and I've said plenty. So I did have theme written as a distinct thing, but actually, I think it's worth talking about theme, relating it back to the villain, because I want to say it's okay for me. I mean, the theme of this film is kind of a boring theme. It's the classic, what's better, freedom or security? That's basically it. And it's like, it's kind of boring because here's the thing: you break it down. Like Hydra. I did this before and I'll do it again. I think we can do pretty much the same thing, or I can do the same thing I did last time, which is look at the organization and then the individual. So here's my problem with Hydra. They're just, it's a really boring motivation. Like if you said, okay, what's our villain's motivation going to be? You've got two options. Either they're evil and they just want to take over the world, or, okay, and this is your other option, or two bad options. This is your other bad option. You say, oh, they think that people can't be trusted with their own freedom. Because, freedom, it's one of those things that we attach an axiomatic value to. So obviously there's morality itself, like, doing good to people, things like that. But then there's this idea that freedom is almost more important than that. So if you can, save people, but it costs you your freedom. If you can create, save people from harm, things like that, it costs you your freedom. And to me, it's kind of like it's almost
Michael the authoritarian being at it again.
No, the thing is, it's almost like worse than if they were just like,
we want
to take over.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I'll just cut it. It's almost worse than just having to be like, we want to take over the world, because it's almost like, it's just like you're kind of generic. Oh man, what a big conflict. Should we have freedom, or should we have everybody be constantly surveilled? And it's like that's not really a real debate. I mean, they're just really, really it's like, it felt to me like this film was trying to be about this really grand idea of, which side is right, almost like Civil War in a way, but then it was just like so dumb because they were clearly, evil. And
that's the thing we said before. It's like, it could have been interesting, but
yes, exactly.
It's a fucking Nazi death cult, which is the people who are for taking away your freedom for security. So obviously you're going to be against them.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to say, like, here's the thing though: if there was one way I think you could make these films better, you would have to change a lot for this to work. But if there's one way you could at least improve these films, in my mind, and this is going to be a bit of a pivot, but I think make Hydra like actual proper Nazis. Now, you might say, well, what do you mean? Aren't they Nazis? But the thing is, okay, the problem I have with Hydra is that they're just generic authoritarians, which is kind of just like as boring as somebody being a generic bad guy. It's like, well, why are they bad? But the thing is, okay, fascists exist. There are people out there who genuinely believe that there is an enduring racial conflict and one race has to be supreme over other races, and the way that races become supreme is by tackling degeneracy and things like that. And that is basically your ingredient. So in a way, I just wish that Hydra were very clearly Nazis, and they were, basically their objective was not just humans can't be, because that's what they say like humans can't be trusted with their own freedom. And like, it's just like I say, it's a very boring thing. It's like, if you just want to come up with your generic villain mentality, then a classic one is just like, oh yeah, humans, they can't be trusted with their own freedom, so they have to learn, they have to be forced to be
they're
good.
Trying to be intellectual about it.
But
it's like, you just want to control people, and you want to be able to tell people what to do, like every villain in movie history.
Exactly. But the thing is,
superhero history.
But the thing is, if it was just like, hey, we honestly believe that some races are superior, and therefore, if there was just literally a scene,
but Marvel couldn't do that.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, exactly.
That's what we come back to.
If it came down to the fact that those ships at the end were just going to target every single like black person in New York, every single like non-white person, then you'd be like, oh, it's going to fly over, I don't know, what's a Jewish area in New York? Queens?
I don't know. You know
Anyway,
what? If
yeah.
they did target every black person in America, there'd be like op-eds written in the New York Times and the Washington Post about how it's not that bad an idea. You know?
Yeah, but so basically, they were like, we're gonna target black people or whatever else, or they made it like that, and obviously, it would never work. But the thing is, at least then you'd be like, okay, well, that's serious. These guys are proper. It's scary because there are actually people out there
It's
who are
relatable.
genuine racists. Whereas there's nobody really out there who is like, oh yeah, I need to take away people's freedom so they can't choose things. Most people don't have that much of a messiah complex. Most people are just like, screw black people, and that's kind of more relatable. Like, I basically just wish that Hydra were just neo-Nazis, and they had swastikas and they had shaved heads and they hated Jews, but instead, yeah, like I say, they're just generic authoritarians, which is as boring as them being generic bad guys.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So yeah, do you want to actually? You know what I want to talk about now, Michael, in relation to the plot?
Yeah. Let me know. It'd be weird if I did, I think, but
Yeah. No. Actually, you know what? I'll discuss one more thing in the surveillance thing. This movie came out, I think, after what happened with Edward Snowden.
oh yeah,
So,
okay, yeah. So
At least it
topical.
was topical, but it was done in a bad way. It was like the one side of the argument was represented by the worst possible people. So yeah, like it could have been good, but
Oh yeah, you know what? Actually, it's worth noting. Julian Assange was arrested. There we go. That's why this is relevant.
oh yeah, this is incredibly irrelevant. Sorry, irrelevant. So yeah, next point. Okay, what is the title of this movie, Michael?
It's Captain America: The Soldier of Winter.
Winter Soldier. So here's the thing. This is my issue with the Winter Soldier in this movie. Like, he's not the most important thing. Like, the most important thing, the title should have been fucking something about Hydra and Shield. Like, the Winter Soldier, he's just an asset which is used by Hydra. He's like the B story. He's not important. Even when I was reading the Wikipedia page discussing the plot earlier on in this podcast.
Yeah, he was an aside.
Yeah, the first bit was about Hydra and them infiltrating Shield, and then it goes on to talk about this mysterious figure in the Winter Soldier. It's like, yeah, I mean, they should have made him a bit bigger part of the plot if they were going to call it like the Winter Soldier, but like it's about Hydra essentially, and they again like it's the same thing I guess that you can say in the first Captain America movie. There's not really a Bucky and Steve Rogers. It just doesn't feel like, I don't know, there's enough backstory there. It's just like they're just saying, Steve Rogers is just saying how much he's friends with Bucky, but I don't know, you don't really get the sense that they were. I don't know if you feel.
No, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, I agree. In some sense, there's like everything's like a lot of it's there. Like, and he is a bit like he comes to his rescue when he's being beaten up and stuff like that. But I think like part of it is almost like it's too perfect that it doesn't feel real. It makes it like literally Bucky's just like the perfect friend. He's like always there to look out for him. He's always supporting him. It's just like I mean, that's kind of what I mean when I say it's like gay. Because when I say it's gay, I mean like you never get there's no male friendship that's actually like that. Like these guys, they're just like mental for each other. And it's just like in real life, like if someone's like, oh, it's my best friend, it would be like, oh, occasionally I'm like, all right, want to go to the pub and play some pool. It's not like, hey man, I'd do anything for you. Just don't win the war until I get out there. I like giving that voice they don't have. But yeah, like I say, it's almost like it feels like like I'm watching a reenactment of a really good friendship by two actors rather than an actual friendship between two people, and that makes it basically. Thinking. I wanted to say something else about Bucky, actually, just while I've got you. It seems like he should have been really easy to reason with, mostly because, okay, so one of the things that they say in this film, there's like, I like this line. I think it's a good line. Sam Wilson says, this Winter Soldier guy, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy you save. He seems like the kind of guy you stop, which I thought was a good line. The only thing I was thinking is that actually, like, Bucky seems like he should be really easy to convince because he's already been, like, all Captain America said was, Bucky, and the next scene we see Bucky and he's like in a really weird headspace where he's like, I thought I knew this guy, and he's like very clearly seeming reluctant and unwilling, so it kind of doesn't actually set him up as like an unstoppable force. It seems like he's actually quite willing to accept that something's up and that he's been duped or something. So that's just a minor thing, but I was thinking about it when it happened.
And like the thing with Captain America at the end not fighting Bucky, it's like, I don't know. It's meant to be like, oh, look at what he's doing. He's putting his friendship first. He's willing to die so not to kill his friend. But it's like, I don't know. It's like he's not your friend though. Like it's not that impactful because he's been brainwashed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's been a while.
That's what I think about. And and it does seem like he could be convinced rather easily as well.
Do you know what? I mean, here's a thought. What if Bucky actually was like genuinely believed the ideals of Hydra, as opposed to being brainwashed? Would that not be slightly more entertaining if Bucky actually genuinely actually changed his opinion?
Yeah, maybe he's one of those guys that.
I'm just thinking because obviously we've already had the whole brainwashing thing with Avengers, where Hawkeye, that fantastic asset, gets brainwashed. So they've already done it. So
yeah, maybe he could be one of those guys who's like. He went over to fight the Nazis, but he didn't really understand why he was fighting them. It's just like, oh, it's a competition to see who's got the best military, rather than actual defeating fascism. And he likes authoritarian stuff and militarism and all that. So yeah, maybe he could have been that. Who knows?
So basically,
is he actually saying the first Avenger, like, I hate Nazis, or something to that effect?
No, he doesn't. I think he explicitly says. The only problem with Hitler is that he said, if I had Hitler and the Jew in a room and I only had 2 bullets, I'd shoot Hitler twice because I beat the Jew to death with my own hands.
That's great. Plot hole, Michael.
Right, plot hole.
Massive plot hole.
I'm ready for this.
Massive plot hole. This could have been
me with your plot hole stick.
This could have been a nitpick, but I was like, no, this is so big. And this is the problem with the cinematic universe of Marvel. You have to have these individual movies that don't.
Oh, why couldn't the Avengers show up?
Iron Man. Why didn't fucking Captain America get on the phone to Tony Stark and go, "Hey guys, this Nazi cult is about to kill people, and we've got 16 hours to go, so it's a pretty big deal. Do you want to help? Do you want to get the team involved?"
This is the most glaring example. It's kind of actually funny in a way because both Captain America films, since Captain America: The First Avenger. It says, I don't know, it kind of said something about Captain America, because the only reason it didn't happen in Captain America: The First Avenger is because it was set in 1945. But obviously, Captain America: Civil War was basically an Avengers film.
Yeah, exactly.
And then obviously, this film should have been an Avengers film. It should have just been a film where the Avengers get together at the end.
Oh yeah, like he's.
And for some reason,
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, Captain America. It seems like all of his plots are just magnets for a team-up movie, not a solo movie. Yeah,
so. That's the thing. Like he's talking with Black Widow in the car. This is before the Winter Soldier comes and fucks shit up. Like, and he's saying like they're just describing what they have to do to defeat Hydra. And it's like, did it occur to you, just to call what the Avengers like during this time? Like I was just thinking that while watching this. It's like I don't know how they could have written around it. I don't know how they could have just gotten America to just.
I was going to say because in the other films, I think they kind of do get around it quite well because Iron Man 3. That's kind of like a personal thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Tony. And then Thor, that takes place on Thor: The Dark World. That takes place in like a completely different dimension, I guess, mostly, or like partially. It's kind of like to do with Thor's ish. Guardians of the Galaxy takes place in a different galaxy, or not a different galaxy, but outer space.
Yeah, and they haven't had interactions with the Avengers before. So.
Ant-Man, they have that excuse that he doesn't want his technology to come in possession of Tony Stark because he doesn't. Tony Stark? Yeah, Tony Stark, because he doesn't trust him.
That's a good excuse.
So like. But yeah, so for most of them, they do have an excuse. But this one, they literally just ignored it, like insanely ignored it.
Because they couldn't do an excuse. Do you think like the Russo brothers probably discussing the script and were like, "Oh shit, how do we make sure they don't call the Avengers?" And they just couldn't think of a reason. Like, so like, okay, we'll just leave it out and hope people forget that the Avengers exist in this universe.
Yeah,
even though Black Widow is sitting right next to him, but whatever.
Yes, it's definitely very, very strange. And
also, Falcon. He just gets dragged into the plot, which is interesting. Yeah, that's the thing. Like they fucking go to Falcon instead of Iron Man. I didn't even know he was called Falcon. They just thought he was some random guy who was serving in the Middle East. And they're just like, "Hey, can we crash at your place?" It's like you should have said, "Don't you want to crash at like Iron Man's place? Don't you want to?" I mean, it seems like weird that that's where they went.
Yeah.
Also, that he was turned out to be a superhero, but
yeah. Also, the fact that while they're taking out these hits on Nick Fury and Captain America and things like that, you'd think they'd also be putting out hits on Iron Man they'd kind of be wanting to cover Hydra. This is, they'd be wanting to cover all of their bases.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like maybe in the background, like maybe that's it. Like maybe while all this is going on, they don't show it, but Iron Man's just dealing with his own stuff.
Yeah, that's the problem. The plot is just too expansive for it not to be an Avengers movie.
Yeah, actually, no. I think what they could have done if they were smart is they could have made it so like Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World were taken as occurring concurrently. Seems like an unnecessary use of the words "cur" twice, but occurring concurrently with the Winter Soldier, like retroactively. So you can have like little kind of clues in there. So in the middle of Iron Man 3, because I don't think they actually released a Avengers timeline. And I think I'm right in saying that this isn't the case. But they could have, if they were clever, they could have said, okay, so Iron Man 3, that takes Iron Man out of commission because he's doing this thing. And while that's going on, the Winter Soldier's happening. And they could have said Thor: The Dark World, which, like I said, I've mentioned this before, it's actually the only Avengers film, the only Marvel film that I haven't seen, apart from Captain Marvel, which I didn't get around to seeing. So it's the only old film I haven't seen. And
the only one not released on DVD.
Yeah. You said it wasn't important, and I kind of agree with you. I mean, at some point I will watch it, but yeah, I haven't seen it. But they could have written a thing so it's like, okay, and Thor's taken out of commission this way, and that will be so. And if you watch all three of them together, you can be like, like concurrently or one after the other. Sorry, you can be like, so that's why the Avengers weren't there. But I think, like I say, that's not the case. I don't think in the actual film. I think that they don't take place at the same time, and therefore there's absolutely no excuse. And even if there was, they should have at least brought that up. They should have had a moment where it was like, well, Tony's busy fighting the Mandarin, so that's why they're doing it now. And Thor's off busy in the Dark World, so that's why they're doing it now. But they didn't do that, so it just seems very strange.
Okay, yeah. I think we should talk about the action scenes now, Michael.
Okay, yeah. So let me have a.
So the first action scene is really good. I think that's the thing, they focused on this more because Captain America.
Oh, actually, sorry, I wanted to say something about Well, I just wanted to mention the actual villain himself. Apart from what's his name? The villain who isn't the Winter Soldier. He's the senator.
What? The senator?
I think it was secretary. That's it.
What? Robert Redford.
Robert Redford. Yes. That's the actor's name, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the actor. I don't know what.
Because I know. I just wanted to say that. Yeah, like I say, he was very obviously a villain, and I was actually thinking to myself, like, it would be like kind of better in a way if just wants to subvert our expectations, they had the character. I was thinking this. I recently rewatched Iron Man because, as you know, I've been doing the quarterly reviews. I had a bit of a break, but they are coming. I'm finishing them at some point relatively soon.
I believe you.
Yeah, good. But I've rewatched all the films and I've got them all scripted. So that's my evidence. But so I was rewatching Iron Man. I was thinking to myself, wouldn't it have been good if Obadiah Stane was like a good guy? Because he seems like a bad guy. So wouldn't it have been better if he was? That's the thing. That's how I think if I had to give a bit of advice to these multi-billion-dollar companies that are making these superhero films, I would say write a character who's in a good guy position, like the mentor of your hero, or the guy who's in charge of the agency. Write them as a villain, and then don't make them a villain. Because I think basically that's why Professor Snape is a really good character in The Philosopher's Stone, because he's written as a villain. You think he's going to be a villain, and it turns out he's not a villain. And that seems to be like the best way to make characters interesting. I was thinking, I was thinking, wouldn't it be better if this guy was just not a villain and maybe he was just a guy who seemed a lot like a villain but actually wasn't?
Well, that twist there, if Robert Redford was a good guy, that would have been interesting, and it would have obviously been another twist, and obviously I kind of complained about twists. That would have been interesting. Like, I think all the other twists that we mentioned, they were just boring. Like, oh, this guy comes back from the dead. That's literally the only twist. Yes, like this guy comes back from the dead, which is just the most played out twist ever, or one of them anyway.
Yes.
So yeah, any more to say?
I was just remembering the Simpsons line. I can't remember what it was. Like, Professor, I thought you were dead. I was. And it's from, I can't remember what episode it's from, but it's from like a TV show they're watching that's really terrible.
So many Simpsons references in this.
Anyway, yeah. But yeah, so I just wanted to say, not particularly, just a boring villain. Like I said, I stand by what I said. It would be, they should just be Nazis, because then Nazis, everyone knows Nazis are bad. And Nazis, they have an ideology. They have a very clear ideology, which is, there's some races are superior, some people are superior, and therefore the people who are superior should rule over those who aren't. And that would be much more interesting than just having like, hey man, we need to take away people's freedom, and then another guy being like, no, freedom is good. It's literally just, especially like in the context of America, like there's like, that's literally the defining feature of America, just like, oh, freedom's good though.
Yeah.
Anyway, so but apart from that, yeah, we'll move on to action. That's what you said, right?
Yeah, action. So like I said, in this movie, they've really stepped up the action. That seems to be something they focused on. Like the action at the start, that was really good on the ship. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I wanted to say my big positive, which is Captain America like really murders people in this film.
Yeah, you can kick
is this
really hard.
Is this the film where somebody gets like pushed into a turbine or something. I can't remember if it's this film or Infinity War, which I've watched recently to kind of prepare for our Infinity War review. But in one of them, somebody gets pushed into a turbine, and it's pretty brutal, which is I appreciated. But yeah, like this film is like brutal, and like Captain America murders people, and I think that's cool. Again, I want to say it could set up for a very interesting moral conflict regarding Captain America, because obviously he's killing people, and you can ask questions about, why am I killing these people? Is it the right thing to do? Am I just a hitman for the US, or a hitman for SHIELD in the same way that Bucky is a hitman for thingy? Like he could actually question whether or not he is a parallel to the Winter Soldier. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just came up with that off the top of my head, but that'd be kind of like a good parallel. So he just as much of a
we talked about Michael. We talked about how uninteresting Captain America is. Actually, with all this stuff, maybe he's actually interesting. Because the fact that he's working for the US government, that just makes him like interesting.
Yeah, I think in a way it's a lot like the Hulk, which I've said isn't very interesting, but he's just not that interesting in the Avengers, because the Hulk is slightly more interesting in the Avengers though. But in both cases, it's like it's because I've always said that the whole idea of the Avengers kind of places a bit of a constraint on the ability for personal development. But having said that, there really is no excuse for just how like underdeveloped Captain America's character is in the story. So yeah, but I'm just saying that's part of it. But anyway, what else about action?
Another good action scene was when the action scene with Samuel L. Jackson, which I really did enjoy.
Oh yeah, that was really good.
I thought that it was really well done. Again, that's what they focused on. That's what they spent time and effort on. It was really good. Those were certainly the high points of the movie. I do have an issue with why didn't they just use the Winter Soldier from the get-go? Why did they need to have like 16 people try to take him down when one Winter Soldier could have done the job? But I'll allow it if it means for a good action scene. I'll be like, yeah, that's fine. Those are the good points about the action. It was good. It gets a thumbs up. It was certainly like a massive step up. Obviously, we watched this back to back with the first Avenger. It was a massive step up from the first Avenger.
But I think fundamentally the problem with the action is there's lots of films are pretty good action. I mean, this action is very good, but at the end of the day, like I say, there's a limit on the action in these films, because obviously when it comes down to it, it doesn't really matter. So obviously there's an extent to which the spectacle is interesting, but like, to be honest, and also a lot of the action isn't that great. Or at least a lot of the action is just, I think any of the action scenes on their own would be fine. It's the fact that it becomes just so repetitive. Spread it out. Take one of the action scenes from this film and give it to the Winter Soldier. Not the Winter Soldier, give it to the First Avenger. And you'd be, redistribute the action. Yeah.
So that's it, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to say... no, I already covered both those things. I was going to say I want to talk about humour, but I actually already addressed both points. Both the 2 points I had written down was when it's talking about all the things he's missed, which I mentioned, and I mentioned the fact I didn't really like Black Widow's quips, which I also mentioned. So yeah, that's everything I have to say, actually.
Okay, shall we conclude then?
Yeah, that's pretty decently timed, so well done us.
Yeah, well done. So I'll conclude first then, I guess, since you went first last time.
Yeah.
Seems fair. So, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Before I was watching this movie, I was kind of looking forward to it. I was like, obviously I remember the reviews that this movie got. I was like, oh, this is going to be good. It's going to be better than the first Avenger. But no, it's just so unfortunate. Well, we've discussed in this podcast how they could have made Captain America's character interesting, how they could have created an interesting story. But the bad guys are, again, very bad. They're Nazis, and the philosophical arguments between freedom and security and all that, when one side is being represented by these neo-Nazis, then it just becomes uninteresting and makes Captain America's job of taking down SHIELD and Hydra and the surveillance, makes it easy, makes it simple for him, and it could have been really interesting if it wasn't simple for him. Action scenes were very good, but that can't be really said about the plot. There were so many twists, and they were all boring, and it was just like a generic spy thriller. Obviously there's that massive plot hole with the Avengers and the issue of the Winter Soldier not being that big a part in the movie, even though it's called the Winter Soldier. That's that. I guess I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 because I think it's just so similar to so similar to the first Avenger. If I had to do your thing when I ranked them, I'd rank this below the first Avenger, but I still think they're both like 6 out of 10 movies. That's it.
Yeah, so I kind of have like a range, which I think is worth talking about, basically, which goes from, so I want to talk about some of the films here. So I've got Minority Report. The thing about Minority Report is that it's an interesting film, but it actually introduces a lot more kind of interesting ideas, and I think Minority Report is kind of similar in that it's like a lot of wall-to-wall action. But Minority Report, I think, brings more to the table. You get films like Ocean's 11, which again is entertaining. There's kind of like an interest in the characters. There's a nice dynamic. I'm just giving reasons why these films are better, basically. Coming to America, obviously, very different films. We won't talk about that. But then there's Predator. Predator has, it's just a pure action film, and in that way, it kind of works better. I think if Captain America had just tried to be a pure action film, almost like Terminator or like any other kind of like pure action film, it would have worked better. In a way, it's kind of just the fact that it tries to be grander than it is that holds it back, and that's why it's, I would say, worse than Predator. And then we're almost at Captain America. Of course, there's films I've already mentioned: A Quiet Place, which is around Captain America; Spider-Man 3, Sleepless in Seattle; Mission Impossible. I should say, okay, so Mission Impossible is dumb. Like Mission Impossible is very dumb, and Mission Impossible is definitely worse. Sleepless in Seattle is obviously a very different film, kind of boring. Spider-Man 3, I mean, like I said, I've already said it's kind of entertaining, but at the end of the day, it's obviously a very flawed film. And to be honest, with all of that in mind, I think, and A Quiet Place brings a lot of interesting stuff to the table. I think all of that said, I'm going to put Captain America Winter Soldier right next to Captain America First Avenger. The real question is it better or worse? And I think I'm gonna say it's. I could go either way. I think the main thing it's got going for it, literally, is the fact that the action's better. I think maybe tentatively, I would. I'm gonna agree with you. I've been thinking about it, yeah, and like the thing is, I could see in a way, like I don't know. I think it could go either way, depending on like your mood. To be honest, like I think sometimes you could rather watch, but like basically the only thing that Captain America: Winter Soldier really got going for it that's better is the action. And then the flip side, I think, is First Avenger has going for it kind of like the idea of actually feeling a bit more like it's about something, like the idea of Captain America as a World War II early superhero who kind of represents truth, justice in the American way. Both of them do have problems in that. Both of them fail to actually really dissect the themes they claim to be about. And yeah, they kind of belong next to each other. And yeah, I'll agree with you. Winter Soldier's worse. Yeah,
I was going to say, like, with the First Avenger, I was saying, like, I was actually enjoying it up until, like, the 75-minute mark, so that's why I put it above. Sorry, did I say the First Avenger or Winter Soldier?
Yeah, no, you did. You got it right.
Yeah, I did get it right. Yes,
now
that's why I
look like an idiot.
Yeah, above the Winter Soldier. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening. We have been selecting and reflecting on Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Captain America: The First Avenger and Captain America: Winter Soldier, because it is Marvel and Endgame is coming out soon. What are we doing next time, Michael?
We are doing, of course, Infinity War. Makes sense. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing anything else in anticipation for Endgame.
Yeah, that should be fun. So who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
And I've been Luke, and see you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.